Artificial intelligence has become an indispensable tool in today's rapidly evolving workplace, revolutionizing the way business operates. With its ability to automate tasks, analyze vast amounts of data, and generate valuable insights, AI has swiftly gained popularity across industries. From streamlining processes and enhancing productivity to driving innovation and improving decision-making, organizations are harnessing the power of AI to stay competitive in a digital-driven world. So, how are organizations in Luxembourg considering these new technologies in their strategy? What AI tools do they use and why? And how much do they know about the upcoming European AI Act? In this episode of TechTalk, we explore the anticipated findings of the third edition of the survey, Use of Data Analytics and AI in Luxembourg, which sought to answer these questions and many more. Andreas Braun is joining us to tell us all about the survey and share with us some of the most striking outcomes. Andreas is the Director of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science and the AI Lab Lead at PwC Luxembourg. So, let's jump right into it. Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. This is episode 3, season 8, about data and artificial intelligence, and this episode is called the one on Data and AI Survey 2023. And with me today I have Andreas. Welcome.
Welcome. Pleasure to be here.
So Armin is unfortunately ill and he cannot join us, but I am in great company, so
I can only agree to that.
Perfect. So I will kick off, if that's okay with you.
Obviously. Please go ahead.
So before we deep dive into the survey and its outcomes, could you please first explain the main goals of it and how long you've been doing it and who's the main target audience?
So the survey is called The Use of Data and Artificial Intelligence in Luxembourg. It's a survey that we have been running since 2019, so for 6 years now. And it is a general survey where we want to find out how Luxembourg organizations and companies are using data in their strategy, what kind of AI tools and AI methods they are using, just to get a broad sense of how Luxembourg is doing as a country in terms of its maturity towards data and AI. So we are posing this survey to leadership in technology, so CTO, head of IT, head of data units. Those are the respondents to our survey. And we are very happy that we managed to get more than 50 responses this time. This is for the first time that enabled us to also look into more detail in 5 different sectors. So we could split out our financial services to asset and wealth management, insurance and banking, and are therefore for the first time able to dig a little bit deeper into those sectors, and we are very happy to showcase those results. And the survey will have been released already at the point when you are listening to this, so we are inviting you to go to our website to download the survey and to check all of the detailed results.
Perfect. And it's really great to hear that you got more respondents from different industries. The more, the merrier, I guess.
Definitely. And as somebody who is analyzing the data, I want as much as I can get.
So it's great. It's more and more people are participating. That's really good news. So let's now focus on the outcomes of the survey. Have they confirmed your assumptions, or are there any unexpected insights you got from it?
The obvious answer is yes and no. So there were, of course, a number of things that were as expected. So we have an increase in maturity of the AI sector as a whole, of what companies are purchasing in terms of their technologies. We still can see that Excel is the king in the house, and people are still using that as their primary data analysis tools. But there was also a few surprises. So we see a really large difference in the different sectors when we are looking at how they rate their maturity around data and AI topics, with asset and wealth management being a bit more conservative and rating their maturity less well, whereas the public sector sees themselves kind of as a front runner, which is a very interesting result because we do not always see this in different countries. In some other results that were a bit surprising, I think, is the lack of awareness of the European AI regulation that is upcoming, which, given that Luxembourg is a very compliance-different country, is something that surprised us a little bit, that there is still a lot for many organizations to learn about this European AI Act so they can be appropriately prepared for this in the coming month.
We'll talk more about that later. And what surprised you the most? What was the most striking finding?
So as somebody with a research background, I was a little bit disappointed or a bit surprised by that companies are now less interested in experimenting around AI, actually. So,
really?
In the 2 years ago, we saw a lot of organizations that were interested to invest in proof of concept, to invest in experiments around AI. And right now, it's more that they are waiting for the market to give them the tools that they can just purchase and use in their organization instead of trying to enable something or develop something themselves.
That leads me to another question, which is what AI technologies are the respondents using? How does AI application change according to the organization size and sector?
So there is no single killer AI application. So we see a broad use of many different applications around the various sectors. So if we are looking at operational companies, they are more interested in predictive maintenance. When we are looking at financial services, they are more interested in fraud detection and topics like that. A few common themes are that many are very interested in natural language processing because essentially all organizations have to deal with a lot of documents. So therefore, having some powerful NLP always supports this task. And we also, of course, see when we are looking on how to best separate large and small companies, I think I would say the larger the company, the more likely they are to be buyers of AI tools. So they tend to use more external tools, and they then are even lower in terms of POC development. The small and medium-sized companies, they are more open to experimentation. They have a more broader field of AI applications that they are using and are investigating in this, investing into those proof of concept. But it is a pretty diverse area. There is no single application that everybody wants to use, not even ChatGPT.
Aha, the C word, as you mentioned earlier.
The C word, yes.
Before we started. So what about it?
Well, it's not actually that derogatory, but as somebody working in AI, I had to use the word ChatGPT quite frequently during the last few months. So it is, something that we are not yet tired of, but that is, of course, is a real big driver of many of our discussions nowadays. So we launched our survey just in time when ChatGPT was taking off. So our responses were primarily collected between January and March of this year, meaning that was just a few months after ChatGPT has launched. So not everybody had tried it already. It was a little bit less prevalent than it would be today. And of course, given how fast the whole domain is developing, it also had various updates that made it more powerful. But we could report that companies showed initial interest in using generative AI tools, one of which is ChatGPT, and predominantly those in text generation. So ChatGPT is good in generating any type of text output or in generating any type of programming code. And companies were mostly interested in that part, much more so than trying to generate images or videos or audios, which is also in the realm of possibility now. So who knows, maybe next year it will just be my AI avatar talking to your AI avatar, and we don't even have to be physically present anymore. But just one notable thing is that here again we saw that SMEs were more likely than large companies to already started investigating, which is in line, I think, with many of the compliance topics and fears around ChatGPT that we see in bigger organizations, including ours, that we have often discussions what could happen if somebody is leaking confidential data or is putting confidential data into the system. So we're having similar discussions with the cloud application, with like what we had with cloud applications over the past few years, and therefore, larger organizations are a bit more cautious, I would say.
Okay, that's very interesting, and let's see how that develops. I think it's a very, very...
It's definitely very exciting. I can only invite everybody to try out those tools. And of course, you had other speakers in the TechTalk that were specifically on this topic, and they are much more qualified than I am. So please also listen to this episode. There are many, many exciting things going on.
Thank you for the promotion. All right, so my next question still about AI tools. So the use of internal AI tools decreased from 50% in 2021 to 27, in 2023, so quite a big decrease, as opposed to the use of external tools, which increased from 20% to 35%. What are the reasons behind these moves?
I think the underlying reason is a positive one. So essentially, the AI market is becoming more mature. You have more readily available tools on the market that are encapsulating various AI methods into a nice user interface that is also very specific for your industry, instead of requiring your own data scientists to always develop everything from scratch. So this is pretty much a trend that we see not only in Luxembourg, but throughout the world. The market for AI products is becoming much more mature, and so companies are now more confident in buying those tools and implementing it in their normal infrastructure, that as opposed to trying to have their own teams developing something that is, of course, very tailored, but it's always very costly to do that, and you need really good people. And we still have definitely a talent crunch on data and AI profiles in Luxembourg, that you just don't find all of the data scientists that you would need in your organization.
And in your view, do you think this is the right way to go?
I think it's definitely the right way to go, with the caveat that one should not stop experimenting with AI, because it is such a quickly developing field. I mean, 1 year ago, nobody knew how powerful those large language models like ChatGPT could be and what type of applications they could enable, at least outside of some research units. And who knows what happens next year? Maybe something similarly powerful comes on the market, and then you don't want to be stuck with your old ways or with your tools that you have paid a lot of money for. But you still need to be open-minded, because the world of AI is moving very, very, very quickly.
Definitely. And do you think that this trend will remain of using external AI tools?
I think this trend is here to stay. So we see that it's becoming more and more of a commodity to use these type of tools. We already have Microsoft that is planning to integrate AI into all of their Office products. They now, all of the big players are having AI integrated into their search engines. And if you're a software company and you are not putting AI somewhere in your advertisement, you are definitely an outlier. So all companies are progressing in their AI agenda, in particular the large tech companies and many startups. So there are literally hundreds of ChatGPT-based startups created every week, and it's really impossible to follow this. But it's like an avalanche. So now since everybody saw how quickly things are moving, now we are having massive investments, massive deployments, and also massive growth of the whole AI domain, which is a very exciting time to live in as an AI specialist.
I can imagine. Did you observe any big changes in Luxembourg since the last edition in 2021?
So there are, let's say, a few things that are always changing are the types of tools that are being used. So, for example, when we are talking about data visualization tools, so it was not all about AI, but we were also talking about, let's say, more common data tools that we see, for example, that Power BI has been becoming quite a bit more popular than it was 2 years ago, to the detriment of Tableau. We also see that the landscape of cloud providers is changing, so fewer are using Google Analytics and more are using now Microsoft tools. So we definitely see a big change in the tools that are being used. We also saw a number of changes around what data profiles exist in the companies. So previously we had a lot of data governance topics where it was about creating a strategy and making sure that your data is well managed. And now we see an increasing differentiation, that you also have more data engineers, more data architects, which is also just a sense of the maturity of the market. So the more you are doing with your data, the more different profiles you need that are able to handle everything that you need to do.
I guess that's also very positive, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's
people are taking data seriously.
People are taking this seriously, and and if you're not taking this seriously, you might get left behind. And we see that, of course, with a bit of delay, also the universities are reacting. We see more data and AI-related master's programs throughout Europe, Luxembourg included. So. Yeah, the pipeline is growing of the different profiles, and of course driven by the larger by the larger IT companies. We see more and more differentiation. There are, of course, with generative AI, some completely new profiles are even popping up, like prompt engineers, which we didn't talk about at all for the last years. It's just about how are you using those generative AI tools in the best way. And this is, however, something that is still very early in the process, and we are very excited or looking forward to revisit this topic on how the profiles are developing in the next edition.
You mentioned Excel. That it's still kind of ruling, right?
Yes, it is.
But how do you feel about that? Do you think that it should disappear eventually from people's work tools?
That is a very, very loaded question. And I'm sure since probably 85% of our listeners are working with Excel every day, including myself. And I don't see it moving away anytime soon. Because it's just we are used to it, and we tend to have a certain stickiness when it comes to applications that we are using. Is it the optimal tool to deal with a lot of more complex data tasks? Certainly not. It's not the easiest to use. But it's also something that can be augmented or improved in the future. So I mentioned this co-piloting concept of essentially having your own small generative AI, ChatGPT-like assistant sitting within your regular tools that then can take some tasks away from you. Like you might not be doing summarization of field F2 to F9, but you can tell the chatbot summarize all of the tables in this document and provide me with an average. So you can do a very quick input and might get the same results. So while I think Excel is here to stay, I'm sure in 2 years we are still talking about Excel. No worries about that. But I'm sure the way in which we interact with it might have already changed in 2 years. And that is, of course, also something to look forward to, because the Excel experience has not changed much in the last 15 to 20 years.
That's true. Well, that's also very interesting. Let's see. So now let's go back to the European AI Act. So according to the report, the European AI Act might be more broadly impacting AI solutions in HR functions, talent management, and financial services. Can you tell us in which way or ways, and what are the steps that they should take to be ready for the change?
Right. So I think in generally everybody who is using AI or every organization that is using AI will be impacted to some point. The European AI Act is developed as a risk-based approach in which we are looking at those technologies. And therefore, it can range from very limited or no risk, which is, for example, when no personal data or no human is much involved in the process. We could think about, for example, your cybersecurity firewall that is based on AI, or your transaction monitoring tool in financial services. And at the other range, we have unacceptable risks. So if you are trying to create autonomous weapon systems based on AI, or social scoring systems where you rank everybody in a country based on AI, this is actually prohibited in Europe. But in the middle, we have a broad range of applications that can be high risk. So for example, in HR functions, consider you have an application that is scanning CVs of all of your applicants to a new job position. This could be a high-risk application because in the end, this algorithm will take in some form a decision on humans. It will filter out CVs it considers unworthy or not good enough for your position. And therefore, it has taken the decision to not hire somebody automatically. And therefore, the algorithm that underlies this has to follow all of the obligations of the European AI Act. It has to be made unbiased. So, for example, you cannot have a rule to sort out people based on age or based on gender. So this would be highly illegal. And of course, similar things apply then to when you are talking about people management. So who do you suggest for promotion? Who are you suggesting for a specific training? So all of these are having impact on people, and therefore can be high-risk AI applications, which does not mean that you cannot use them. It just means that you have specific obligations. You have to ensure that the models or the algorithms that are underlying have been very well validated. You have to ensure that there is constant monitoring of the tools during operation. And if you are purchasing such a high-risk application from somewhere, it actually has to be certified. So it will just be like your car is certified and approved for technical suitability. This will be the first time we have the same for algorithms, which is also quite a new thing to do in Europe.
So it's a very positive thing, much needed.
Well, it is. It is much needed because we had a number of adverse examples of what can go wrong if AI is not being controlled. Ranging from, we had a case of the lawyer that was using ChatGPT to create wrong court cases and was trying to use them as evidence. But which is still a bit funny, but we also had much more severe incidents about this person in Belgium who was committing suicide after his suicidal feelings were reinforced by a chatbot that was not well trained. So it was not ChatGPT, but some other model, and it was not trained to react appropriately to people expressing such feelings. And of course, we want to prevent such instances. We want to prevent human harm as much as possible. It's the European approach to many things, which is definitely positive. And therefore, I think it's definitely time that some form of regulation is put under it. But of course, our respondents are also quite mixed in which way it might impact them positively or negatively.
Mm-hmm. And actually, respondents are quite optimistic, right? They think that this new regulation can facilitate innovation and also increase European competitiveness against the US and China. So in your view, how can we use it to drive innovation?
So there are a number of provisions in this regulation that can help this innovation and competitiveness process. First is that member states or European countries are supposed to invest in innovation around AI. So, and this money is invested centrally from Europe into a number of research projects, but also all countries are supposed to put in their own funding schemes to create startup funding and to just make available a lot of money into AI innovation. A second important aspect is that we are trying to, differentiate us from the US and in particular China by creating trustworthy applications. So if they are going through our regulatory cycle if they are tested by technical institutes that have checked all of these solutions for their suitability. It might actually be an advantage on the world market, given that somebody has a really well-tested and trusted solution. Other topics are about networking between countries. There are also various entities being created by this regulation that fosters the collaboration between the European countries to share not only research, but also share in innovation, in startups, and just having a more fostering of a culture of innovation around there. And the last interesting aspect is the regulatory sandboxes, so which allows early stage development of AI tools that are still in piloting and experimentation to not necessarily having to fulfill all of the obligations and all of the certifications that are necessary to launch a product on the market. So you're essentially creating a safe space for testing that is still controlled because it will not be released to the wide public, but you're able to test your AI applications without having to go through the full compliance chain that you have for then the products ready for the market.
All right. Actually, does the US have any such similar regulation, or are there in conversations about it?
Yes, so the US also has regulations or has started discussions on regulations around AI and data, which are maybe having a little bit less strict guidance than what Europe is doing. We even see AI regulation in China. So, everywhere around the world, some of these regulations are popping up. In China, we, for example, have the case that they are trying to monitor their social media, of course, a little bit better in order to prevent algorithms from being against the government. And in the US, you have, of course, less restriction in the military domain or in the judicial domain on what you can use AI for. So we see the typical thoughts that each part of the world has around those regulations also reflected in their individual approaches. But at this point, most parts of the world have already started to work on their regulations around data and AI.
Okay, but I guess in a way the EU is kind of pioneer, or it's more advanced. And
so we certainly started the whole process, but the EU is also known for being a little bit slow. So the whole process has started more than 2 years ago, and it will at least take probably take around another year until this becomes law. So of course others could already be inspired by earlier iterations of the law. But indeed, we see some parts of the regulation or some of the ideas, in particular this risk-based approach, is reflected in most other regulations around the world, that they don't want to have like a blanket compliance topic on all AI applications, but that they are all looking at what is it actually used for? Is it something that poses any risk to us? Or is it something where we can just let it go and don't have to put any specific compliance around it?
Okay. Well, on the other hand, the respondents of the survey also think that it will increase requirements and compliance costs.
Yes.
How should organizations prepare to face these challenges?
First of all, they are not wrong. So, it is a new regulation. It will come with a certain cost, and it will come with a certain amount of requirements. And therefore, in particular, organizations that have not very well established data governance or data privacy considerations are worse positioned than companies that are already quite mature in this regard. So there is a very strong overlap between data governance and AI governance. Because if you have a good overview of what you are using your data for, what tools you are using to process your data, etc., it's just a very small compliance jump to go then to also consider AI in this domain. It might require some specific expertise because the AI is still a very specific topic. So in particular, if you are trying to assess what third-party providers have done for you, you will need some AI expertise in this regard or find somebody with AI expertise. but the better prepared you have been with your data governance and GDPR topics, the better you are prepared for the AI Act. And of course, it's never too early to start. So the draft text is pretty much final. We do not expect too many changes. So it's a very good point to get an overview of what this is all about, to have somebody explain you the intricacies, and to think about what could be the impact for your organization.
That's very good advice. So my last question is, if you could anticipate trends for the next edition of the survey, what would those be?
Well, first of all, I would be curious if we are still talking about the C word or if it will be some other very fancy AI application that has taken over the world by storm. That is one interesting thing to notice, but I do think that we will see maybe a even bigger shift in applications that people are using. So we have still our not only Excel, but other general tools that have been around for quite a while. And I'm very curious to see if in 2 years this has changed to a lot more GPT-style tools. That would be quite interesting. And the second thing is that we are very curious to assess the first impact of the regulation, which hopefully will then have been a law for a year or so. And so organizations will actually have faced this regulation, will have to adapt their compliance process. So we are expecting that first experience of what this actually means in practical terms for Luxembourg companies has been established by then.
Perfect. I'm sure we'll have another podcast to
I'm
talk
sure
about.
We will.
Exactly. So we will come back to this one to see if what you said materialized or not.
Exactly. So if my human crystal ball is good enough, or if I should have rather asked ChatGPT about what to expect in 2 years.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Andreas, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I have one last question. What is the main key takeaway you want people to take from this episode? One last message.
I mean, one last message is Luxembourg is a pretty exciting place to be when it comes to topics around AI. I mean, we might not be the country that is developing the most fanciful of applications, but we are one of the countries that finds very interesting ways to actually use AI in their daily business, in particular in the financial sector. So it is small but quite impactful in many regards.
Great message. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for today. This is TechTalk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Don't miss out on any future episodes by hitting subscribe. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode.